I woke up feeling like I was drowning. A bucket of ice water had just been dumped straight over me. The freezing water rushed into my nose, my ears, soaked through my shirt, and seeped into the mattress of the guest room. I coughed and sputtered, gasping for a breath of air. The moment I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was my 16-year-old grandson. He was holding a phone right up to my face, just inches away. He was grinning with delight, like a kid who'd just unwrapped his favorite Christmas present. Then he shouted, "Oh my God, it worked. Look at his face. Everyone, look at his face." But he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to 62,000 strangers. The live stream was still running, and every single one of them was watching me flail around like it was entertainment. The whole room burst out laughing. Not one of them realized that in those few short seconds, I had made a decision that would change forever. Not my health, but the future of their entire family. If only, that day, they had stopped for just 1 minute to ask what gift I had brought them. Then perhaps everything would have turned out very differently. My name is Gene Lindstrom. I'm 75. I live in Duluth, Minnesota, in a little house with a view of Lake Superior when the fog permits one. And for 39 years I worked the engine rooms of Great Lakes ore freighters, 1,000 feet of ship, 26,000 tons of taconite, and me, down below with the diesels, keeping the heartbeat going. You learn things in an engine room you can't learn anywhere else. You learn that machines never lie to you. They tell you exactly what's wrong if you're humble enough to listen. And you learn to judge things by one measure only: what they do under load. Remember that phrase. It's the whole story. My Alma passed 3 years ago. 48 years married, and she still laughed at my jokes the way she did on our second date, which I maintain is the only retirement plan that ever mattered. Since she's been gone, the house is tidy and the coffee's too quiet, and my family shrank down to what's left. My son Kurt, outside Minneapolis, with his wife Trish and their 2 kids, Bryce, 16, and Ingrid, 13, though nobody's called her anything but Indy since she was 2. And 2 winters back, my own engine room sent up an alarm. Cardiac arrest. They called it my heart through a rhythm it couldn't recover from. And if it hadn't happened in a hardware store checkout line with a retired paramedic behind me, you'd be listening to somebody else tonight. The surgeons put a defibrillator in my chest, an ICD, a little Watchman wired to my heart, ready to shock it back into line if it ever stumbles again. I tell you all that not for sympathy, but because you need to know exactly what was under my shirt when the ice water hit. Now, about those envelopes. When you spend 39 years on the boats, you don't spend much. The lake feeds you, the company bunks you, and Alma and I lived small on purpose. So there was money. More than my family ever guessed, because a man in flannel driving a 15-year-old pickup doesn't read as a man with savings, and I never corrected the reading. After the heart scare, I did the arithmetic every widower with hardware in his chest eventually does. What's it all times for? Sitting in an account, waiting for a funeral. So this spring, I sat at my kitchen table with Alma's fountain pen and made 3 envelopes. Envelope 1, a certified check for $76,000, the exact remaining balance on Kurt's mortgage. Paid. Done. My boy free and clear at 44, 20 years ahead of schedule. Envelope 2, papers establishing a $95,000 college fund for Bryce every credit hour of any school that would take him, so my grandson could start his life the way I never got to, owing nobody anything. Envelope 3, $15,000 and a note in my block print: take the whole family somewhere warm. Your mother always wanted to see the ocean that doesn't freeze. $186,000. Everything that mattered from 39 years below decks. And I planned to hand it across the dinner table at the 4th of July reunion. Watch my son's face, watch my grandson's face, and toast Alma with lemonade. That was the plan. I've built a lot of plans in my life. I've never had one sink faster. The drive down to Kurt's place runs 2.5 hours, and I made it with the envelopes riding shotgun in the glove box like 3 quiet passengers, hugs in the driveway, burgers going on the grill, Trish's potato salad, which I will criticize to no one because I am not a fool, and Bryce. Bryce hugged me with one arm, because the other one, as always, held his phone. I should tell you about Bryce's phone, because it isn't a phone, it's a career. My grandson runs a prank channel. 62,000 followers at the time, a number the family recited the way other families recite a kid's batting average. Trish called him our little influencer. Kurt called it good money, actually, and told me about the energy drink company sending Bryce free cases and a contract. And I'd seen a few of the videos strangers startled in parking lots, a teacher's chair rigged, his own sister filmed crying over a fake ruined phone. I'd said something once, a year back, that laughing times at times people isn't the same trade as making them laugh, and Kurt had waved me off with the sentence that should have told me everything. Dad, it's a different world now. It's just content. Content. Hold on to that word too. Around 2 o'clock, the drive caught up with me. The heart medication makes afternoons heavy, and I told the family I'd lie down for a spell before dinner. Guest room, upstairs. Quilt Alma made in 1987 folded on the chair. I was asleep in 5 minutes. The deep kind. The kind you only get in a house full of your own people, where some old animal part of your brain believes it's safe to go all the way under. That's the part that gets me still. I went all the way under, because I trusted the house. What happened next, I had to piece together afterward from the video, and yes, I've watched it, once, all the way through, because a man should know exactly what happened to him. It runs 4 minutes. It opens with my grandson's face, close and conspiratorial, whispering to his live audience, Okay, Grandpa's out. We're doing it. The waking up challenge. This is going to be legendary. The camera swings. There I am, an old man asleep on his back under a quilt his dead wife sewed, mouth open, hearing aid on the nightstand. The comments are already scrolling. Do it. Do it. W content. Then the bathroom, the bucket, a mop bucket, Trish's mop bucket, the ice dispenser rattling, the faucet. 90 seconds of my grandson giggling while he built it. And then the doorway, the countdown to his 62,000. 3, 2, 1, and the water. I want to try to tell you what it was like from inside, because the video only shows the outside. There was no times waking up. There was existence. And then there was drowning cold that hit like the lake in November. Water in my throat before my eyes opened, and my body doing something it hadn't done since the hardware store. My heart slammed, skipped, slammed again, and I felt the wrongness of my own rhythm, the way you feel a diesel throw a rod. I came up out of that bed gasping, grabbing at my chest, one hand on the nightstand, knocking my hearing aid to the floor, half blind, half deaf, soaked, 75 years old, and completely unable to understand what was happening to me. While 6 inches away, my grandson screamed with laughter and narrated my terror to strangers. Look at his face, bro, look at his face. He's so confused. The comments, I learned later, were rolling by at 10 a second. Laughing emojis, skull emojis. Somebody wrote, Bro really woke up in 1954. My heart stuttered twice more hard enough that I sat back down on the wet mattress and pressed my palm flat against the device in my chest, counting, the way the cardiologist taught me, waiting to find out if the watchman was going to have to fire. It didn't. By maybe half a beat, the rhythm caught and held. Bryce was still filming. I looked up at my grandson, dripping, shaking, one hand on my own chest, and I said the only thing I had. Bryce, I have a heart condition. And my grandson, and this is the sentence I will hear for the rest of my life, turned to his camera, grinned, and said, He's fine, chat. Grandpa's built different. And ended the stream on a like and subscribe. Downstairs is the part that actually broke something. Because a 16-year-old doing something brainless, that's weather. That's been happening since there were 16-year-olds. What happened in that kitchen was climate. I came down the stairs in a borrowed towel, still trembling from cold, from adrenaline, from the leftover lurch of a heart deciding whether to stay, and I told them. Bryce dumped ice water on me while I was asleep. He filmed it. He put it on the internet. Live. My heart, I had to hold the counter. My heart did something up there. And my son laughed. Not a big laugh. Worse, the small, indulgent, boys will be boys chuckle, the one that files you away. Dad, come on. It's a prank. He does it to everybody. It's kind of his thing. Trish came in behind him carrying the mop bucket, and her contribution was, Honestly, Gene, you're okay, right? Let's not make this a whole times thing times in front of the kids. He worked really hard on his channel this summer. He worked hard. on the channel, whose content, that afternoon, was my heart failing on camera. I stood in that kitchen, dripping on their tile, and I did the math I'd been refusing to do for years, every visit where Bryce never looked up, every dinner where my stories got the glazed nod, every time I'd been talked over, scheduled around, parked in front of the television like a coat nobody wanted to hang up. And I understood, with engine room clarity, that this wasn't an incident. It was in Time's audit. The prank hadn't changed how this family saw me. It had Times revealed Times it in high definition, with a like button. If you've ever had a moment like that where one bad afternoon suddenly explains 10 quiet years, you know it doesn't feel like anger. It feels like fog lifting off water. You just finally see the shoreline you've been drifting toward. And then there was a tug at my sleeve. Indy, 13 years old, holding 2 dry towels from the good closet and a mug of tea, eyes red. Grandpa. I told him not to. I told him it wasn't funny, and she set the tea down and hugged me soaking wet as I was, ruined her shirt and didn't care and whispered, "I'm really glad your heart's okay." One person. In a house of my own blood, one person checked the engine instead of the footage. Remember what I said about judging things under load? That afternoon, that whole family went under load, and 13-year-old Indy was the only thing on the vessel that held. I kissed the top of her head. I went upstairs, changed into my spare shirt, and I told them I was tired and heading home before dark. Nobody argued very hard. Kurt said, "We'll see you at Thanksgiving, Pops." Bryce didn't look up from his phone checking his numbers, I'd learn, because the clip was already traveling. And I walked out to my truck, and I sat behind the wheel, and I opened the glove box, and I looked at 3 envelopes for a long, long minute. Then I closed it, soft as a hatch, and I drove 2.5 hours north with the radio off, doing the quietest thinking of my life. What I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that the internet was about to hold the trial my family had skipped. Bryce clipped the stream and posted it that night, captioned "Grandpa Wake Up Challenge Gone Wrong. He's okay lol." By Tuesday it had 3.1 million views, and somewhere in those millions, it found the wrong audience. A cardiac ICU nurse in Ohio stitched the video, pale with anger, and explained to her own 500,000 followers exactly what cold water shock does to an elderly heart, and what that gesture was. The one at the 2-minute mark. The old man pressing his palm flat to his chest and counting. "That's not confusion," she said. "That's a man with an implanted device waiting to find out if it's going to fire." This prank could have been a funeral. Her video outran his. The comments turned like the lake turns in a gale. Then a regional news station ran it elder abuse or online entertainment, with my gasping face blurred, which was somehow worse. The energy drink company dropped Bryce with a statement that used the word values, which I found rich, but I'll take my justice where it's poured. His followers didn't unfollow so much as times invert, times 62,000 people who'd arrived for cruelty, stayed for the pile-on. Because that's the other thing about an audience like that. It doesn't love you. It loves the smell of blood, and it genuinely does not care whose. Within 2 weeks, my grandson's empire was a crater, and I want to be honest about how that felt, because I promised you honesty, not good. Watching that boy get devoured by the same machine he'd fed me to, there was no victory in it. You don't cheer when a deckhand gets pulled overboard by his own careless line. You just note, grimly, that the lake teaches what the family wouldn't. But sympathy is not the same as amnesty. And that same week, I drove downtown to see Carol Maki, my attorney for 18 years, a woman who talks slow and drafts fast, and I laid 3 envelopes on her desk. "Not one of them," I said, "goes where it was addressed." And then I told her where the money was going instead. Envelope 2. Bryce's $95,000 became 2 things. An education trust for Indy, locked, growing, hers at 18 for school and nothing else. And the remainder endowed as the Alma Lindstrom Deckhand Scholarship at the Maritime Museum down on the harbor, for kids studying marine engineering, kids who want to learn how things actually work instead of how things look. Envelope 1, the mortgage went back into my account, on hold, indefinitely. And envelope 3, the vacation. I'll tell you about envelope 3 at the end. Carol read my face while she notarized. "You're sure, Jean?" "I judge under load, Carol," I said. "They've been weighed." Kurt found out the way everything in a family gets found out sideways. Carol's paperwork required a beneficiary notification. Indy's trust meant Trish saw a document. Trish told Kurt. And Kurt, my son, did some arithmetic of his own and called me on a Thursday night with his voice already halfway up the flagpole. Dad, what is this about a trust for Indy? And what does Carol Maki mean there was a college fund for Bryce? So I told him. All of it. The envelopes. The glove box. The dinner announcement that never happened because I'd spent that dinner hour driving north in a wet shirt. The silence on the line went on so long I checked the connection. And then my son said, and I want you to notice what he led with, because it's the whole diagnosis you were going to pay off my house. Not, Dad, your heart. Not, Dad, I'm sorry, I laughed. The house. 2 days later his truck was in my driveway. Now slow down with me here, because this is the conversation everything had been driving toward, and you've earned it whole. He came in hot, pacing my kitchen, the kitchen he grew up in, and he ran through the stations. It was a stupid prank, Dad. He's 16. You're punishing a kid for one dumb afternoon. Do you have any idea what we're going through? He's lost everything, the sponsors, the channel. Kids at school are brutal, and now you're taking his future too? And that $76,000, Dad. We planned around, he caught himself. Too late. Planned around it? I said, quiet. You didn't know it existed until Tuesday. He had the decency to flush. And then I set my coffee down, and I gave my son the speech I'd been drafting for 2.5 hours of dark highway. Kurt, sit down. He sat. The prank cost Bryce nothing with me, I said. He's 16. 16-year-olds are cruelty with a learner's permit. I did dumber things on the boats at his age, and men with more patience than I deserved straightened me out. So hear me. This was never about the bucket. He waited. It's about the kitchen, I said. I came down those stairs with my hand on my chest, and I told you my heart had done something wrong. And you laughed. Son, your wife told me not to make it a times thing. In front of a camera, your boy told 62,000 strangers I was built different. And in your kitchen, you told me, to my face, that my fear was an inconvenience to the afternoon. I let it sit. The water woke me up, Kurt. But the laughing is what I heard all the way home. My son stared at the table, Alma's table, for a long time. Then quieter. So that's it? One bad day and you cut us off? Nobody's cut off, I said. Indy's fund stands because Indy held under load. The scholarship stands because your mother's name deserves to be on something that teaches kids to times build, and your mortgage. I slid an envelope across the table, not the check, a letter. Your mortgage gets paid, I said. The month I watch this family teach that boy that people aren't props. Not a public apology, not a comeback video. I want to see who Bryce is when there's no camera in the room and nothing in it for him. Same for you. I'm not buying respect, Kurt. I tried gifting it, and I nearly got a heart attack for wrapping paper. He left without much more, but he took the letter. And a man who takes the letter is a man who read it in the truck before he hit the highway. I'd bet the boats on it. Here's the lesson I want to set down before the last part, because it's the one this whole cold summer taught me. The mistake most people make is treating disrespect as a mood when it's actually a times measurement. Nobody becomes furniture in their family overnight. It happens one talked-over story at a time, one he's fine at a time, one laugh in a kitchen at a time, and by the time somebody's pouring ice water on you for strangers, the family has already voted. The bucket just publishes the results. So here's one thing I'd ask you to actually do, and do it before you forget. If there's an older person in your family, hearing aids, heart hardware, medications, or just years, sit the young ones down for 5 minutes before the next gathering and make them custodians instead of spectators. Give them the job of knowing, because kids don't protect what nobody ever assigned them. And the fastest way to stop being content to your grandchildren is to become a person they've been trusted with. And then sit with the question I now ask about every room I walk into. In your family, who gets laugh times with? And who gets laugh times at? Take your time. The difference between those two words is the entire health of a household. Now let me tell you how it's ending, because it isn't ended, and I've learned to distrust stories that tie off too clean. In August, an envelope came to my door. Not typed, handwritten the wrestling, Cramped block print of a boy who hasn't handwritten anything since fourth grade, 4 pages. No camera, no caption, no audience. Bryce. He didn't say the internet was unfair to him. He didn't say it was just a prank. He wrote, and I'll give you only the sentence I've read 50 times. I watched the video again after the nurse's stitch, and I saw you counting your own heartbeat, and I can't stop seeing it. And I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I keep thinking about what Mom's mop bucket almost cost. At the bottom, a P.S. I deleted the channel, all of it, not because of the sponsors. Because Indy wouldn't talk to me until I did. That girl, Alma, to the bone. He asked, in writing if he could come up some Saturday. Not for Thanksgiving, not with the family, just him. He's been coming up since September. We volunteer Saturday mornings at the Maritime Museum down on the harbor. He does tours for the school groups now. And I'll tell you something that would have sounded like fiction in July. The kid is good times at it. Turns out all those years learning to hold an audience work just fine when you point them at a ship's engine instead of a sleeping old man. Last Saturday, I watched him crouch down to a nervous 8-year-old and explain how a 1,000-foot freighter turns in a harbor, patient as a deckhand coiling line, no phone anywhere on his person. And I stood back by the engine display with my hand-old habit, now resting flat on my chest, steady as she goes. Envelope 3. By the way, the vacation money is still sealed. In my desk, with one word added to the front in Alma's fountain pen, someday, because I judge under load. And the load isn't finished yet. But I'll tell you this much, friend. The needle's moving. Now it's your turn, because I've argued this one with Carol Maki over plenty of bad coffee. Put a 1-inch the comments if you think driving away in silence and redirecting that money was exactly right, consequences first, doors open later. Put a 2 if you think I should have stood in that kitchen, opened all 3 envelopes in front of everyone, and let them watch what the laughter was costing in real time. Put a 3 if you think pulling a 16-year-old's college fund was one bucket too far, that a boy's worst afternoon shouldn't price his whole future. Because I'll be straight with you. Some Saturdays, watching him with those school kids, 3 gets a fair hearing in my truck on the drive home. Tell me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is there. An old engine man likes knowing how far a story can carry over water. And if you've ever been turned into content by your own family, a photo, a video, a story told at your expense while you sat right there, tell me about it below. Somebody reading tonight just watched their family laugh at the wrong moment. And they need to know the fog does lift and the shoreline is real. If this story meant something to you, subscribe and stay a while. I've got a lifetime of them, and this little corner of the internet only keeps its harbor light burning because folks like you keep coming back. Thank you, truly, for sitting with me tonight. I'll see you in the next one. This is a fictional story inspired by real emotional experiences, fully rewritten and reimagined in Duluth, Minnesota to create original content. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental.